Hello, and I'm back for the third and final installment of this mini series called Why I Hate Windows using Chromeboxes. Um, Last time we went through unpacking, unboxing, and then we went through setting things up. This time I'm actually running it. You're looking at the video being recorded on the Chromebox itself, of the Chromebox, I should say, not from the Windows machine. And the experience has been mixed. I've used it for about a month, and for the most part, it works okay. But unfortunately, it doesn't work as well as I want it to work because usually I do a lot of stuff on a daily basis. There's usually a lot of tabs open, and I have two monitors, so I have basically things spread out so I can take care of whatever I need to do. And in terms of the apps themselves, everything I needed to do, with the exception of video editing, is definitely being handled just fine on the Chromebox. I mostly was using Google Apps for business applications anyway. So all my word processing documents, all my spreadsheets, presentations, all of it is done. I was using Google Apps before for this anyway, so that hasn't changed, and it's working great on using Chromebox. In terms of hooking up two monitors and making that works fine. You can do that. The only thing that has been a problem is after using it for a while with a bunch of tabs open, sometimes it freezes, and it would freeze for like a minute. At first I thought it would freeze permanently, but actually it would freeze for about a minute, and then the mouse starts moving again. And then after a little while of moving, it stops again and kind of in the frozen mode. And sometimes it picks up, sometimes it doesn't. Most of the time it does, and then it starts losing again. So it's almost like there is something. One thing I don't know 100% is if that's potentially something wrong with this particular Chromebox, this particular unit itself, not Chromebox in general, but that unit, because my kids have Chromebox that they use downstairs all the time. I have never seen it hang ever, and all the time I've used it. But with due respect to how it's being used, they usually use it for various things they do with Google Apps and games and email and all of that. And I jump on it, do it too, and my wife jumps on it, does it. But we don't do a tremendous amount of stuff on it. Whereby I uh, on my setup here, I do quite a bit of stuff. I edit text files, I do um, transfer files, I edit images, I do all kinds of manipulations with images. Anyway, it's and of course recording some hangouts like this. So I'm assuming it's going to record okay. Hopefully you can see it okay. And I have the two monitors set up. I'll show you. Basically, there's the two monitors set up. We'll video feedback, and both of them right now are using hooked up using Chromebox. So Chromebox can definitely drive two monitors, no problem. Most of the time, speed is fine. It's not a problem. If it wasn't for this occasional, and when I say occasional, I mean if I use the machine, I mean a lot, then usually it would hang up at least once a day. Sometimes I've seen it as many as three times a day, which of course is to me is completely unacceptable. Not that I'm going to do anything about it because um, there's really not much more I can do in terms of switching to something else. But it is definitely annoying, and it's definitely a problem. And I don't know. It could be related to the fact that I'm using two monitors. It could be related to the fact, in other words, maybe when you use two monitors, the operating system at some point in time just gets to the point where there's not enough memory to handle everything. So that's one thought I had. Another possibility would be I open too many tabs, and my answer to that kind of comment is it's just I open what I need to open. I mean, there is no such thing as working in two tabs and making sure that's okay so it doesn't freeze. I mean, using computer to use it, not to baby it. So we'll see how that goes. At some point in time, if I get another Chromebox for something else, I might swap them out. That's one of the beauties of it. If you don't store stuff locally, which mostly I don't, you can just swap them out and you're up and running. Just to see if the problem has to do with this particular unit. And if that's the case, if it's the unit itself, then obviously it's easily fixable. You just replace it with the one that works. But in my case, it hasn't been. In other words, I don't know. So for now, we'll assume that it's not the unit itself, but it could be. It could be. Other than that, it's been pretty good in terms of apps. Everything that I need pretty much is out there. The only thing I've been missing is FTP for transferring files. And so for that and for video editing, I still use my old Windows machine. And so let me show you real quick how that's set up so you can get an idea how this works. So I'll just put it on there. So here is one of my monitors there. As you can see on the bottom, the different icons that I run. And yeah, to show you the functionality a little bit, you can click on a little file folder. It opens up and shows you the files that are out there. As you can see, it's not instantaneous, but at the same time, when you pull up Windows, it's much, much slower than this even, at least on my Windows machine. And you can look at things in list mode. You can look at them in the image mode, thumbnail mode, and obviously you can navigate directories. I also have SD card in place, so you click on SD, there is SD. And just to show you, I can play a video, for example, from this SD. It's a MP4 video, and gives you some idea as to the speed, because we're loading from SD card, which of course is far slower than loading it normally, and it's a pretty big video. So as you can see, it takes it a little bit to open up, and of course I'm also doing a Hangout, so I'm using a lot of memory for that. But let's see if it'll let me play. Now we'll let it think for a bit more, and then we'll just close it if it doesn't start playing. Typically it works fine. I mean, in terms of playing, it just, like I said, Hangouts usually, even on Windows, they eat up a lot of resources, and so that certainly could be a problem in loading and running this. Keep in mind, this box only has 4 gigabytes of RAM. I mean, you run 4 gigabytes of RAM on a Windows machine, it's not even gonna let you do practically anything with only 4 gigabytes of RAM. So yeah, it doesn't seem to want to do, so it's okay. Anyway, it does pull up content from the SD card. I don't know if I have anything else. I guess I don't have anything else right now there. And you can look at the directory. If I open up, if we look at some pictures, for example, like this one, double click, as you can see, it comes up. If you're used to working in Windows, it's not going to be that much slower, or in some cases faster, but definitely not slower than doing this in Windows. So that part works fine. And you can also pull up an image, for example, and then you can go and edit it by clicking on a little edit thing here in the regular viewer, which is nice. You can print it, you can play it as a slideshow, share it with other people. And so if I go into the editor here, then I'm presented on the bottom with a number of choices. As you can see, I can crop it. I can, there's the one to enhance it automatically, and do some other things. So bottom line is that you can work with the stuff. You can edit images. I have other apps that like Polar, which is excellent for image editing, phenomenal application. And there's a number of them. Pixlr Editor is really good too. For text editing, Carrot, I use Carrot, which is very nice, and reasonably full-featured. Works pretty well. Other than that, you load whatever apps you want. You want a little calculator thing, a little calculator comes up, and so on. So pretty much similar. You got Windows, you got moving the mouse. Everything works. Moving it around works at a decent speed, and so that part is very similar to working in Windows. You're not losing anything; you're just gaining here. In terms of Windows, let's talk about that for a second. I'm using this Chrome Remote Desktop, which is an app that Google put together, and you just simply click on it, and it comes up, as you can see, with computers that are attached, that are configured on my network. And so I have this desktop PC, which is my Windows computer. So I click on it, it goes ahead and opens, and there is now you're actually looking at, you can see, let me You can go full screen if you want, or if you don't want to go full screen, I can actually, minimize it. You can see it's right there. So the bottom line is that it's just running as a separate window, okay, in this whole environment here. And so what I can do here is minimize this little guy here and just click on it. Now you're looking at my Windows box. So you're looking at my Windows box, even though I'm running it from the Chromebox, and I need to type my password properly. And there you are. Now you're looking at all the icons of my Windows machine. You can see all the familiar Windows icons, the IE, everything else. I mean, this is running actually Windows. And so it's connected to my computer on the same network, but it doesn't have any keyboard, mouse, or monitor basically for it. It's just a box sitting there connected through the network. And as you can see from here, I'm using the same mouse. The same keyboard that I use for the Chromebox. So essentially, just clicking on that one little button there allows me to jump into Windows. And if let's go back to here. If I minimize it, then I'm back to my Chromebox. You can do whatever I want. You can see the icons here, Chromeboxes. But I can jump right back here, and there I am right back at Windows. And I can go full screen and go work in this mode. Doesn't matter. So the beauty of this approach is that I still have full and complete power and speed of Windows and ability to run whatever apps I want on Windows, but it's kind of sitting off to the side. So instead of loading memory of Windows and going back and forth and fragmenting it and having it slow down to a point of a crawl or that needed to be rebooted, and my reboot took good 10-15 minutes to really come up fully, sometimes even longer. All of that is basically in the past because I only use Windows for what I need to use it for. So one of the applications used, for example, is FileZilla, which unfortunately they don't have an equivalent one for Chrome OS. And so even though there is something like NetFTP, they're very awkward compared to how nice FileZilla works. So as you can see here, it comes up at full speed of PC. You're not losing any speed at all, even though it's running in the emulator. And essentially, I'm using it just like I would use, PC normally if you were using. It's the same thing. See, it comes up quickly. I can jump in and out. I can, obviously multitask, load different software programs. If I want to get into my video editing software, I can get into that. I got a couple of different pieces of software there. I don't do image editing mostly on this side anymore because I don't want to be doing too much jumping back and forth. The whole idea was to eliminate the need to do a lot of Windows-based stuff to kind of accelerate things. And so that, for the most part, has worked really well, except for the deal with Chromebox locking up here and there. It's worked actually pretty well. But I still have access to my Windows, as you can see in the separate deal. And, I close it. It's gone. I got my Google stuff back. I can do whatever I want to do here. I want to jump back into it. I just simply click on it. Takes me back. Click on the name of the computer. And you can have multiple computers, as you can see. You can configure multiple ones. And so with one click, I'm right back on my Windows machine. So that's definitely a very convenient and useful capability. And for people thinking about switching, which I don't recommend wholeheartedly, but I recommend still, based on my experience, even with the fact that it's locking up, I would still recommend switching because as long as you have your PC on the side and you have full access to it using this single keyboard, single mouse approach, that enables you to do just many more things. And since most of the time, if you're like me, you're using Google Apps and you're using email, you're in Gmail, and potentially you're doing some image editing, and you're doing moving files back and forth and doing stuff on the internet. All of these kind of things, in the browser, all of that stuff is just fine to work on the Chromebox. And I can't show you right now the boot up time, but it literally boots up in about 9-10 seconds. And so even when it freezes, hangs up in the Windows, used to irritate me to no end because you have to, wait all this time until the thing comes back. With this thing, even though it still irritates me to some degree because, as far as I'm concerned, it shouldn't be locking up. Still, we're talking about just a few seconds and it's right back up again. And so the only problem it creates for things that save things all the time, like if you look at Google Apps, for example, you go into work on a uh, Google Sheet, you make any changes, it automatically saves it, so you don't have to worry about saving. So even if it freezes at some point in time, you simply reboot the machine. And by the way, one thing it's doing is sometimes when it freezes, after a little while, if it's not coming back and if I don't reboot it, it automatically reboots by itself. So it's really weird how it does this thing. And so this reboot thing, similar to if you did it manually, again, takes 10 seconds, and then it comes up with the Chrome, I'm sorry, the Chrome browser with the little pop-up that says restore tabs. You click on the restore tabs, and it just restores everything, reloads everything, and that takes a little bit, longer than a few seconds, because depending how many tabs you had open, how complicated websites were, and so it'll try to obviously reopen everything. But you can continue to work at the same time. It doesn't slow down the machine much at all, so you can definitely work at the same time while it's loading all your tabs, reloading, I should say. But it comes up very quickly. That's the point. The point is that it comes up so quickly, and you can get right back to work, that the irritation is minimized compared to the irritation of similar things happening on Windows, which also to me happen every, I don't know, a few days of heavy work, sometimes even less than that, because the RAM just gets fragmented, and that's it. There's nothing you can do. So unless you have unbelievable amounts of RAM, which I didn't. I have on my Windows, I have 8 GB of RAM, and on like I said, in the Chromebox, I have 4. So with that said, I'll finish by saying that I still recommend, considering the cost, where you're spending less than $200 for the whole setup. You can spend as little as $150 if you go with a 2 GB version. You're getting a full blown box. You can connect it easily to your existing monitor or monitors if you have multiple monitors. And you have this potential for freezing up, but recovery is very quick. I mean, extremely quick. So that makes it so much better. And basically, you eliminate all the problems. Even though Chrome can get infected with viruses as well, it's nowhere near as bad as the infections you get with Windows. And so everything altogether, it's still a worthwhile deal. You don't need to throw away your PC. You just simply hook it up using Chrome Remote Desktop, and for the most part, things work pretty darn well. So I would certainly recommend this approach. I'm going to continue to use this approach. I might switch to, if they come up with a better, more RAM and faster CPU Chromebox, I would definitely consider it if it was priced about the same level. I mean, you're spending even $200 a year on a new computer. I mean, that's not bad. My Windows computer, when I bought it, was over $1,000. So spending $1,000 every year, that's not something most people want to do. But a couple $100, it's not that big of a deal. And if the thing works well, you don't even need to spend, get a new one. But I definitely recommend the Chromebox approach. And if you have any questions, drop them there in comments. Other than that, thank you for listening, and until next time, bye bye.